This is the Music History Today podcast for November the 23rd. On today's show, the king of the Delta blues goes into the recording studio for the first time. First up, though, on this date in 1903, opera singer Enrico Caruso performed for the first time in America when he debuted at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City. In 1936, blues legend, the king of the Delta blues, Mr. Robert Johnson, recorded for the very first time when he held his first recording session at the Gunter Hotel in San Antonio, Texas. We discuss this monumental event in music history on this week's Music History In-Depth podcast, which has dropped on this network. In 1959, the musical Fiorello, based on the life of New York City Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia, yes, the airport was named after him, opened at the Broadhurst Theater on Broadway. It won 3 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. In 1960, the Elvis Presley movie G.I. Blues opened in movie theaters. In 1963, the sci-fi British television show Doctor Who premiered. Why is this a music story? Simple, because it has one of the most recognizable TV theme songs ever made, which is actually early electronica. There you go. In 1968, the Cowsills TV special, The Cowsills, A Family Thing, premiered on NBC television. In 1991, Freddie Mercury of Queen announced that he had the AIDS virus, which was very terminal back then. He passed away the very next day, and yes, we do talk about this whole thing also on the Music History In-Depth podcast. In 1992, country music singer Roy Acuff passed away from heart issues at the age of 89. In 1995, Motown singer and saxophonist Junior Walker of Junior Walker and the All-Stars passed away from cancer at the age of 64. In 2009, Little Richard had unsuccessful hip replacement surgery. He would end up having serious hip problems for the rest of his life. In 2009, same day, the musical Fela, based on the life of musician and activist Fela Kuti, opened on Broadway. In 2015, one of the founding members of Sly and the Family Stone, trumpet player Cynthia Robinson, passed away at the age of 71. In 2020, country music singer Hal Ketchum passed away from dementia at the age of 67. And in 2024, game show host Chuck Woolery passed away at the age of 83. Aside from the trivia about him being the original host of Wheel of Fortune from 1975 to 1981, when he left after a salary dispute, and of course Love Connection, where he was always back in 2 and 2, and also because of his political views, which got a little on the Ted Nugent side towards the latter part of his life. The reason why we actually mention him is because he has a musical connection. He originally started out as part of the psychedelic pop duo The Avant-Garde, he and his partner Bubba Fowler. They had a one-hit wonder back in 1968 with the song Naturally Stoned, which is why Chuck Woolery gets the mention. In award ceremonies that were held on November the 23rd, in 1993, Emerson, Lake and Palmer received their star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 1995, Michael Jackson and Bjork were among the big winners at the MTV Europe Music Awards. In 2008, Rihanna and Chris Brown were among the big winners at the American Music Awards. And in 2014, One Direction and Katy Perry were among the big winners at the American Music Awards. Albums that were released on November the 23rd include in 1964 when the Beatles released The Beatles Story. In 1970, Cat Stevens released his classic Tea for the Tillerman. In 1974, the Moody Blues released This Is the Moody Blues. In 1979, Public Image Limited released Metal Box, and Mike Oldfield released Platinum, but only in the UK on that date. In 1981, AC/DC released their classic For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. Also on that same exact day, Pink Floyd released a collection of great dance songs. In 1990, Bad Religion released Against the Grain. In 1993, Snoop Dogg released his debut album Doggy Style. Also on that same day, the album Beavis and Butthead Experience was released. Yes, they made an album. Also on that same day, Guns N' Roses released The Spaghetti Incident. And along with all of those in 1993, Archers of Loaf released their album Icky Metal. Ace of Base released their classic, The Sign, or if you don't consider it a classic, at least it was a huge album that won a lot of awards that year. The Cowboy Junkies released Pale Sun Crescent Moon, and Linda Ronstadt released Winter Light. In 1996, Cyndi Lauper released Sisters of Avalon. In 1999, Freedom Call released Stairway to Fairyland. Dave Matthews Band released Listener Supported. Motley Crue released Live Entertainment or Death. Fish released Hampton Comes Alive. Jessica Simpson released Sweet Kisses. And R.E.M. released Man on the Moon. In 2004, Robert Downey Jr., yes, the actor, that Robert Downey Jr., actually released an album. It was called The Futurist. Also in 2004, Evanescence released Anywhere But Home. Sarah McLachlan released Afterglow Live. The Allman Brothers Band released One Way Out. And Nirvana's Estate released With the Lights Out. In 2008, Guns N' Roses released Chinese Democracy. In 2009, Susan Boyle released her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream, but she only dreamed that dream in the UK on that date. Singles that were released on November the 23rd include in 1964 when the Beatles did a twofer. They released I Feel Fine and She's a Woman. In 1970, ex-Beatle George Harrison did a twofer. He released Isn't It a Pity and My Sweet Lord. In 1979, Pink Floyd released Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, but only in the UK on that date. Also in 1992, Michael Jackson released Heal the World, and in 1999, Santana, featuring the Product G&B, released Maria Maria. Before we continue, we'd like to tell you that we've started Season 2 of the Music History In-Depth podcast, where we go more in-depth on some of the events that we mention on this particular podcast. The Music History In-Depth podcast drops every Tuesday on this podcast network. Now, back to the Music History Today podcast. Artists who were born on November the 23rd include singer-songwriter Miley Cyrus. Also, singer-songwriter Bruce Hornsby of Bruce Hornsby and the Range and a bunch of other big groups. Also, rapper Corrupt of the Dog Pound, Freddie Marsden of Jerry and the Pacemakers, singer Betty Everett, Patrick Mameli of Pestilence, Alison Mosshart of The Kills, Ken Block of Sister Hazel, Charlie Grover of Sponge, producer John Jellybean Benitez, singer Jack Hardy, and Tony Borge of the group Budgie. Artists who unfortunately passed away on November the 23rd, other than the ones mentioned earlier, include organist Josef Zvaner, conductor Edward Napravnik, flute player Arvid Klevin, conductor Evert Cornelius, the conductor of the Radio Philharmonic, Mr. Albert van Raalte, organist Paul Isofsson, singer-songwriter Judy Sill, the first Black American bandmaster of the United States Navy Band, Mr. Alton Adams, saxophonist Eldero L.D. Williams, songwriter Tommy Boyce, saxophonist Art Porter, jazz singer O.C. Smith, singer and actress Beverly Tyler, musical lyricist Betty Comden, jazz singer Anita O'Day, conductor Richard Hickox, musicologist James Tyler, opera singer Montserrat Figueras, and the opera singer with the New York Metropolitan Opera from 1979 to 1993, Carol Niblett. Next on the Music History Today podcast, it is November the 24th, when in 1991, Freddie Mercury of Queen passed away from AIDS-related illness at the age of 45.